and I would credit becoming a master of breath work. And I knew breath work pretty well and had used it with my athletes. But when I used it to purge things from my system physically, mentally, and emotionally, it was a game changer. You can have up to 90% more nutrition absorption, 2/3 less stress, 50% less dehydration, nitrous oxide production that you cannot mimic by eating any amount of plants. So could you briefly just touch about on what you did and what you experienced with your breath work? Because I think it's so powerful and something that's free, cheap, and easy. If you learn how to do it right, it will collectively change your whole existence.
About 10 years ago, like Sean was saying, I've always been very fit and I like challenging myself to the highest levels possible. And I opened my gym up before any CrossFits were open up. And I've trained like I trained my athletes, always 100% functional movement, body weight, using cables, using weights as tools to help movement improve. And so when CrossFit came out, some people online were saying one of the hardest workouts in the country was X. So people would like, hey, Jon, they did this workout, so I don't, nobody thinks you can do it. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna crush it, because I knew I would, and I did. And so in the process of it, though, it was an incredibly metabolic workout. And I got what's called lung burn. High-level athletes can get lung burn because you can push the barometer so high, you stay in anabolic threshold for an incredibly long time, and the lactic acid builds up in your lungs, literally, and you fry your lung. So I did that, and I coughed for about 15, 20 minutes, thought nothing of it, and then I was fine after that. And about 5 or 6 months later, of course, the knucklehead gene kicked in again, and I had to do another super hard workout, and now I'm coughing for about 2 hours after the workout. 6 months later, I did the same thing again. I got lung burn official. It didn't go away for almost 2 years. I couldn't jog a block. I couldn't do anything where my heart rate would rise. Otherwise, I'd start uncontrollably coughing. Your lungs literally feel like you took a hot iron and then are pushing them on your lungs. I asked different doctors and nobody knew what it was. And then finally, I had lectured at USA Olympic swimming. I'd lectured to all the swim coaches before, and so I was friends with them. And I asked one of them, he laughed and he goes, "Oh yeah, we get that all the time. Swimmers get that all the time." And I was like, "Oh, finally somebody else has this." And I was like, "How do you reverse it?" And he goes, "Man, you pretty much just can't do anything for a long time." And I was like, "Okay, that's not a plan I want to hear." And so I said to myself, all right, what's the number one thing that we take in every day? Air. And this goes in my lungs, and my lungs are probably functioning right now at 40%. So how do I get my lungs back to 100%? I have to study breathing. Simple breath test of 12 seconds. That's how long after doing this. Exhale, plug your nose. I could only hold my breath for 12 seconds, which is considered really bad, actually. Putenko, Russia, who started all this breath work in Russia back in the 50s and 60s, he did this simple test where you exhale, then you hold your breath. And he found that people that had only the ability to hold their breath for 15 seconds or less, high likelihood of having something seriously disease-wise go wrong with them. And that sort of scared the crap out of me. So I started working on this hard. And so I went through all these different breathing techniques. And I've been doing yoga for 24 years right now. And most yoga breathing is very passive. And so I started doing that, and I just didn't feel like it was challenging my lungs enough. And probably because I'm such a rockhead and that I have to do everything in fifth gear, but the more the passive breathing didn't expand my lungs like I wanted. So I started looking at different breathing techniques that would really expand them. And at this time, Wim Hof, who's termed the Iceman, he was just getting noticed. And this is quite a long time ago. And so I began to study what he was doing. And my friends were the first first two people in the United States to get certified. They certified me. It took me through a whole week-long course. Within 2 months, I got my exhalation and hold over 4 minutes. Now that's after an exhalation. And so I was like, wow, this is quite dramatic. But then at this time, I still would find myself doing symptoms of unhealthy lungs. This is one, and which I bet you guys have done. Finding yourself having to catch your breath, and you do that, that's a sign that your lung function is not healthy if you have to do this, lift your shoulders up and stuff like that. And I was still doing that. And so I came upon a book that was written in the 1870s by a guy, a world famous photographer, a Native American photographer, and Curtis, I think was his last name, and it was called Shut Your Mouth. And the book was all about nasal only breathing. So I'm a fan of really old literature because I find that all the, especially in the fitness world and movement and stuff like that, all the books now are usually soliciting some product. And so I always like to look back at the stuff from physical culture days, early 1900s, late 1800s. And that's where they really simplify terminologies. And so I read this book, and he was talking about how Native people always, when we all picture them, they all have a very strong presence. And then he said, but then when I run into Europeans, they have what's called horse face, where the jaws slack. And you think about it, you're like, oh my God, that's true. And then everything that comes with it. So what I started doing was I started shutting my mouth, breathing only through my nose. And that was really great during the day. But I broke my nose when I was little, and we didn't have money, so I never got my nose fixed. So I could only breathe through one nostril. So then I invented this little thing to dilate my nasal passages that I made out of a paper clip, and I put it in my nose and it opened it up. Voila, I could sleep through the night. I taped my mouth shut so I breathe through my nose, and I started sleeping better, and my lung function started to greatly improve. I applied the nasal breathing to all the same Wim Hof methodologies, and my lungs got really strong and healthy again. And now if I want to just go super hard, I can do that.